तो सभी साई भक्तों को शिरडी की पावन भूमि से ओम साई राम। आज गुरुवार 6 जुलाई और गुरुवार की आप सभी डिवोटीज़ को ढेर सारी शुभकामनाएं। तो आज श्री साई सच्चरित्र पारायण का अध्याय नंबर 5 हम करेंगे। तो आइए बाबा का नाम लेके अध्याय नंबर 5 शुरू करें। श्री सच्चिदानंद सद्गुरु साईनाथ महाराज की जय। श्री गुरुदेव श्री दत्त। श्री साई कृपा आप सभी भी हमेशा बनी रहे। ओम साई राम।
Om Sai Ram. Let us understand the fifth chapter, which is the reappearance of Shri Sai. But before that, let us do the Namasmaran, followed by the fifth chapter, the reappearance of Shri Sai, and then we will conclude chapter number 5 with the Aarti. Om Shri Sai Nathaya Namaha. 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 Om Sai Ram. The reappearance of Shri Sai. I bow down to Shri Ganesh. I bow down to Shri Saraswati. I bow down to the Guru. I bow down to the family deity. I bow down to Shri Sita Ramachandra, and I bow down to Shri Satguru Sainath. Now, to continue the story from the previous chapter, Baba disappeared from Shirdi and reappeared with Chand Patil. Listen to how all this happened. How Baba created and tended the garden by himself, watering it of the gathering of Gangagir and other saints. Listening to this narration will be sanctifying. Later on, Baba, who had disappeared for some time, how this gem of a person returned to Shirdi in the Bharat of a Muslim. Before that, Devi Das had taken up residence in Shirdi, and later Janaki Das, the ascetic, also came here. How all this happened, I will recount it in detail. Listeners, listen to it attentively and with respect. In a small village called Bhup in the district of Aurangabad, there was a fortunate Muslim whose name was Chand Patil. While he was traveling to Aurangabad, he lost one of his mares and there was no trace of her for 2 months. He lost all hope. Patil became completely despondent and was greatly distressed by the loss of the mare. Carrying the saddle on his back, he began his return journey. Leaving Aurangabad 4.5 course behind, he came across on the way a mango tree, underneath which he saw this gem. Wearing a cap on his head and a kafni on his body, a wooden stick under his arm, crushing tobacco and preparing it for filling his chillum for smoke. When a strange thing happened. As Chand Patil was passing by, he heard the fakir calling out to him, "Come along here, have a smoke, and then proceed further. Sit here for a while in the shade." The fakir asked him what the saddle for, and Patil answered that he had lost his mare. Then he told him, "Go and search for it near the stream." The horse was found immediately. Chand Patil was wonderstruck and thought to himself that he had met an oiler. There is no limit to his powers. He cannot be called an ordinary human being. Afterwards, Patil returned with the mare to the original place. The fakir made him sit next to him. He then picked up his hand and in his hands a pair of tongs. Then he thrusted it into the soil there, took out a burning coal and put it on his chillum, which was in his hands. He picked it up with a satka. Next, there was no water around to wet the chappi for his chillum. So he bet the satka on the ground and water began to spring. The chappi was soaked in the water and then squeezed dry. He wounded it around the chillum. He smoked it himself and made Patil smoke too. Patil was dazed. He made a request to the fakir to sanctify his house by his presence, and the fakir, who manifested himself only for such divine leelas, obliged him. He went to the village next day, stayed with Patil for some time, and he then returned to Shirdi. This Shant Patil Kharbhari was the head man of the village. A marriage was arranged with a girl from Shirdi for his wife's nephew. It was a fortunate that an alliance with the bride from Shirdi was fixed for the nephew of Chand Patil's wife, who had become of a marriageable age. Along with carts and horses, the marriage procession started for Shirdi. Out of love for Chandbai, Baba also joined the procession. The marriage was over and the marriage party returned. Only Baba stayed behind and stayed on for good. Thus, Shirdi became blessed. Sai, the eternal, the ancient one, was neither a Hindu nor a Muslim. He had no caste, nor family, nor gotra. Know him to be a self realized soul. People called him Sai Sai. How was this name given to him? Welcome Sai is the reverence with which he was welcomed, and that's how this name remained. Near Kandoba temple in Malsapati's threshing ground, when Baba alighted with the marriage party on that day, he was given this name. Originally, the threshing ground belonged to Malsapati. Later on, it belonged to Amin Bhai. When the marriage procession came, it was here that it halted under the banyan tree. The bullocks were unyoked at the threshing ground in the extensive open space in front of Kandopa's temple. Baba, along with the marriage guests, alighted there. When the youthful fakir got down from the cart and was seen by Bhagat Malsapatiji, he went forward to him saying, "Welcome, Sai." Since then, he was being called by that name. Later on, from that time, everyone called him Sai Sai, and that became his proper name. He smoked his chilam there, resided in the masjid, and enjoyed the company of Devi Das and felt happy. Sometimes he would sit in the chavadi, sometimes in Devi Das company, sometimes in the Maruti temple, absorbed completely in the self. This Devi Das was already living in Shirdi before Baba came there. Later on, the sage Janki Das of the Mahanubhav sect. With that, Janki Das Maharaj would sit and chat, or Janki Das would come where Maharaj used to sit. Both were fond of each other and would come and meet regularly. Their kingship developed and pleased everybody greatly. Similarly, a great famous Vaishnava, a household saint called Gangagir, who hailed from Puntambe, was a frequent visitor to Shirdi. Great was Gangagir's surprise in the early days when he would see Sai carrying water from the well in earthen pitchers in both hands. When he first set his eyes on Sai, Bua openly proclaimed, "It is the good fortune of Shirdi that this precious gem had associated him with Shirdi. Although he was carrying water on his shoulders today, he was not an ordinary person. Blessed is the soil of Shirdi on which he had set his foot." Similarly, another well known saint named Anandanath had predicted for him he would perform miraculous deeds. This famous Anandnath had established a mutt in Yola. He came to Shirdi once along with some dwellers of Shirdi. Anandnath, who was a disciple of the great saint of Akalkot, when he saw Sai, exclaimed, "This is indeed a diamond, a real diamond." Though today he was lying on the garbage heap that is neglected, it is not just a flint but a diamond. These were the words of Anandnath when Baba was a youngster. Mark my words carefully. Later on, you will recall them. After professing this, thus he returned to Ola. Those were the days of his youth, when Sai did not shave but grew his hair long and dressed like a wrestler. Whenever Baba would go to Rahata, he would bring saplings of marigold and jasmine. He planted them in a barren land and regularly watered them. Vaman Tatya, a devotee, regularly supplied two unbaked earthen pots to Baba to water plants with his own hands. Baba would carry the water on his shoulders from the tank at the well, and at sunset he would keep the pots at the base of the neem tree. No sooner were they kept on the ground, they would break on spot, and early next morning, Tatya would bring new ones for him. An oven baked pot is more durable, but Baba required only the unbaked and new. So, without undergoing the trouble of baking, the potter would sell. For 3 years, this continued, and the wilderness was transformed into a garden. This is the place where which stands the Vada today, which provides the devotees a place of close association with him. Here, under the neem tree, a devotee named Bai installed padukas of Akalkot Swami for worship by devotees. Swami Samartha of Akalkot was a chosen deity of Bai who was worshipped, and his portrait was there and was worshipped regularly with devotion. He thought of going to Akalkot to have a darshan of the Paduka and offer worship to them with his heart and soul. He got ready to start from Bombay the next day, but that decision remained unfulfilled, and instead he left to Shirdi. On the day before his departure, he saw a vision. Akalkot Swami commanded him, "At present, Shirdi is my abode. You go there." Obeying the command with reverence, Bhai left for Bombay. He lived in Shirdi for 6 months and was at peace and happy. Bhai was full of devotion. So, to commemorate he installed the Swami Padukas under the neem tree. In Shake 1834, in the bright half of the month of Shravan, on the auspicious day, the Padukas were installed under the neem tree, singing of bhajans with great devotion. At this auspicious Mahurat, the installation ceremony was done by Dada Kelkar, while the rites and rituals were performed by Upasni, according to the Shastras. For the future arrangement was entrusted to a Brahmin named Dikshit, who would be performing the puja, and a devotee by name Sagun looked after the management. This is the story of the Padukas. Such are the unaffected saints who are truly incarnations of God and appear on earth for the salvation and benefit of mankind. Some days later, a strange thing happened. Listeners who listen to it with respect will marvel about it. There was a seller of betel leaves by name Moideen Bai. A dispute arose between him and Baba, which flared up into a wrestling bout. Both were skilled wrestlers, but destiny prevailed over strength, and Moideen proved stronger. Baba, being weaker, lost. After this, he took a decision. Baba completely changed his attire. He put on a kafni and tied a loin cloth. He was also wrapped with a piece of cloth around his head. He used a gunny bag or a sack of his seat and also as his bedding. He wore torn and worn up rags and was content with them. Sai would always say, "Poverty is better than kingship, far better than riches. The Lord is the befriender of the poor." Gangagir also passed through the same phase. He was very fond of gymnastics. Once While engaged in a wrestling bout, he also had similar feeling of dispassion. At the opportune moment, he heard the words of a realized person. One must realize that the body should be serving God and should wear out in the service of God. While still engaged in wrestling, he heard these words of grace. Because of them, he was discarded. He discarded the worldly life and sought the path of spirituality. Near Puttanam Bay, on the island in the middle of a river, stands Bua's Mutt, where some of his disciples also stayed to serve him. Enough about him. Later on, Sainath only answered questions put to him, and he would never talk to anybody on his own. During the day, he would sit under the neem tree and sometimes under the shade of a protruding branch of the babul tree by the side of a stream near the outskirts of the village. Sometimes he would wander around about and his pleasure during the day or in the afternoon or in the early evening near Nimanga, a mile or so away. The famous family of Trayambak Dengle had the Jagirdari of Nimongaon, Babu Sahib Dengle from the family was dearly loved by Baba. Whenever Baba took a round of Nimongaon, he would go to his home with great affection and spend the day talking with him. He had a younger brother whose name was Nana Sahib. He had no son, so he was very dejected. There was no possibility of a child from his first wife. Therefore, he married for the second time. Still, fate could not be altered. One cannot fathom destiny. Later, Baba Sahib sent him to Sai Darshan for a Sai Darshan, and with Sai's blessings, he received the prasad in the form of a son. As time went by, multitudes thronged to have darshan of Sai. Sai's fame increased, and the news reached Ahmednagar. There, Nana moved in the government circles and was influential with the officials, among whom was Chidambar Keshav, the secretary to the district collector, to whom he was sent a letter saying that the great Sai is worthy of darshan and he should have a darshan, bringing along with him his wife, son, and family friends, one after the other. Thus, many people started pouring into Shirdi. As Baba's fame spread, so also this circle of devotees increased. Although he was not in need of company, he was surrounded by devotees during the day. But after sunset, he would reside in the dilapidated masjid with chillum and tobacco and a tumbler. He always kept a satka near him. He wore a kafni reaching up to his ankles and a white piece of cloth around his head. He would tie around his head a white cloth which was washed and artistically twisted behind his left ear like locks of hair. Dressed thus, he would go at times without a bath for 8 days at a stretch and walked barefoot. He only sat on a gunny bag cloth. His seat was always a piece of sacking. He did not know what bolster was. How could there be any proper bedding or grandeur during those days? The old sackcloth was his favorite seat. It always remained there for 24 hours. There was the only seat and bed. He wore a cocktail, tied the waist, and had no other garment. Only the dhuni was there to ward off the cold. Baba would sit cross-legged facing south with his left arm resting on the railing in the masjid, gazing intently into the dhuni in front of him. Along with ego and passion, all kinds of desires were offered as oblation, and also worldly aspirations were thrown into the dhuni by different ways and means. In this manner, he fed the log of pride of knowledge in the brightly burning fire and repeated Allah Malik, thus keeping the banner of the Lord's name flying high. And how big was the masjid? The whole place was the size of two rooms in which he sat, lived, slept, and received all visitors. The mattress and cushion are a recent feature. where devotees began gathering around him. In early days, one could not go near him without fear. It was from 1912 that the change came over. The renovation of the masjid started. Since then. There was a deep, knee-deep pits in the flooring of the masjid, but because of the faith of the devotees, the flooring was paved with Shahbadi stones one night. Before moving into the masjid, Baba stayed at the Tatya. He stayed there long, peacefully, untroubled by anyone. Here, tying jingling bells around the feet, he would dance gracefully and sing melodiously with devotion to the accompaniment of the tambourine. In the early days, the great Sai was fond of burning. Therefore, he himself used to go to the shopkeepers and ask for oil. Carrying a tumbler like container in his hand, he begged for oil from the shops of the grocers and oil mongers, and after bringing it, he would fill the earthen oil lamps. He burnt the lamps brightly in the temple and the masjid. This continued for some time. Out of the worship of the light. He even celebrated Deepavali with illumination. He would make twisted wicks from rags and he would burn the lamps in the masjid. He bought the oil daily free of charge. Therefore, the oil mongers conspired against him to put the end to the nuisance. Later, when Baba went to ask for oil as usual, and when all refused, look at what a wonder took place. Baba went back without a word and put the dry wick in the earthen lamp. What could he do without oil? The grocers watched that fun. Baba picked up a pot which was on the parapet of the masjid, in which there was little oil, not even enough to light the evening lamp. Then he put the water into the oil and Baba drank it. Thus, having offered it to a Brahman, he took pure water. Then he poured the water in the lamps and soaked the dry wick completely, struck the matchstick, and lit the lamps for all to see. Seeing the lamps burning with water, the grocers were dumbfounded. They felt disgusted with themselves that they lied to Baba, even though there was not a drop of oil. The lamps burnt throughout the night. People started commenting that the shopkeepers had now lost his grace. The grocers felt repentant for having harassed Baba, causing him anguish without any reason, and having committed the sin of uttering lies. They thought, how great is Baba's power. Baba never thought of this. He was never angry or hated any person. He had no friends or foes. All were equal to him. So be it. We will continue with the former episode, Mohiddin's victory into the wrestling bout. Further, the life story is very interesting. Please listen attentively. 5 years after the wrestling bout, a fakir called Jawanahar Ali of Ahmednagar came to reside in Rahata along with his disciple. Finding an open place near the temple of Veerabhadra, the fakir camped there. The fakir was very fortunate. If he was not fortunate, how could he have acquired a delightful disciple like Sai, whose fame had already spread? There were many kinds of people in the village. Amongst them were also quite a few Marathas. Out of them was one Bagu Sadafal, who became his servitor. The fakir was a great scholar. He knew Quran Sharif like the palm of the hand. Many selfish people, genuine devotees, were desirous of Paramatma. All alike started worshipping him. He started the construction of Idgah. After some time, he was charged with having defiled Veerabhadra. Later, the construction of Idgah was stopped. The fakir driven out of the village. He then came to Shirdi and stayed in the masjid with Baba. The fakir was very sweet-tongued person. The whole village started worshipping him. The way he behaved with Baba, the people said that he had hypnotized Baba and bewitched him. Be my disciple, so said the fakir. Baba, being of a sporting nature, agreed to it. The fakir was pleased and took Baba along with him. He got an obedient disciple like Baba. Jawahar Ali became the guru. Both of them together decided to stay on in Rahata. The guru was not aware of the accomplishments of the disciple, but the disciple knew the shortcomings of the guru, but he never showed any disrespect and fulfilled the duties of a disciple. He did not consider the propriety or impropriety of the Guru's orders, but carried them out meticulously. He did even the menial duties for the Guru, such as carrying water, and so continued the service of the Guru. The visits to Shirdi became occasional. When this happened, I will tell you what followed. This went on for a while. He started residing in Rahata only. People thought he had left Shirdi and had completely gone under the fakir's control. People thought that Jawahar Ali had captured Sai with his own yogic powers, but Sai's attitude was different. He wanted to destroy the bodily pride. People will conjecture where was there any pride inside, but this behavior was for the sake of the people to set an example, and this is exactly the purpose of his avatar. There were many loving devotees of Baba in Shirdi who were greatly attached to Baba, and they thought it would be improper to stay away from Baba. But Sai had completely surrendered to him, Jawahar Ali, and the villagers were grieved over the situation. They began to seriously consider how to bring him back as gold as its glitter or the lamp and its light. So is the state of complete unity between the Guru and the disciple. The group of devotees from Shirdi went to Rahata near the Idka to try their utmost to convince Baba to return along with them. But Baba told them to the contrary. The fakir is very hot tempered. Do not cross the swords with him. He will never leave me. You better leave from here. He will come back any moment from the village. He will abuse you. His wrath is terrible. As soon as he returns, he will get red hot with rage. His rage is awful. Oh, you go away immediately. Set on your way to Shirdi. Now, what turn will take place? Baba had given an opposite viewpoint. Just then the fakir returned unexpectedly and asked them thus, "Have you come for the lad? What were you talking about here? You have a design to take him back to Shirdi, but don't take the trouble." Even though he spoke so in the beginning, he yielded to the pressure of the villagers and said, "Why not take me along, and we will take the lad with us." So the fakir also went along with them. He could not leave Baba, and Baba was also could not part from him. No one could understand how this happened. Sai was the incarnation of the supreme Brahman, but Jawahar Ali was fake. Devidas tested him and the cat was out of the bag in Shirdi. Devidas had a good physique, lustrous eyes, and attractive looks. He was 10 or 11 years old when he came to Shirdi. At a tender age, with a loincloth around his waist, he came as a pilgrim and stayed in the Maruti temple. Appa, Bill, and Mahalsapati were regular visitors. Kashiram and others would give him alms. Thus, his fame spread. 12 years before Baba came with the marriage party, Devidas had come and settled in Shirdi. Appa Bill was taught to write on a slate and made to learn the Venkatesh Stotra. Everybody was also made to learn it by heart. These lessons were taken regularly. Devidas was very learned. Tatyabai regarded him as his guru. Kasinath and others became his foremost disciples and worshipped him. The fakir Jawahar Ali was brought before Devidas and a debate regarding the Shastras took place. The Bairagi Devidas won over the fakir and the fakir was driven away from there. After he escaped from there, he stayed at Vaijapur. Later, he returned after many years and brought down to Sinai. The misconcept was cleared up that I am the Guru and Sai is the Chela. Baba accepted him as before, since he had repented and was purified. Such were the inscrutable ways of Baba till the time the fakir's illusion vanished. When it was destined to, Sai played up to it. Sainath honored the concept of the teacher and student relationship by practicing it himself. He let him cherish his status as a teacher and accepted his own status as a student. We should belong to somebody, or somebody should belong to oneself. Anything different from this is not right. Without this, the worldly ocean cannot be crossed. This is the only lesson learned from his behavior. It is rare to find such confidence, intrepidity, and courage. One who can follow this example, he will attain the acme of humility. In such matters, ingenuity and intelligence is of no use. One who wants to achieve his own good should behave without pride. He who burnt away his bodily pride in the person who alone has used his body for a proper purpose to achieve the ultimate good, he may have then become anybody's follower or disciple. The young and the old were amazed to see this dispassionate state of mind in the boy so young and fair. All the people adored him and marveled at him. The actions of a realized person happen according to his past karma, but they are not a burden to him. He does not become the actual doer. Just as the sun cannot stay in darkness, so the man of enlightenment cannot remain in the state of duality. For him, the whole universe is the incarnation of his own self. He dwells in unity, Advaita. This story of Guru and his disciples' behavior was narrated by Mahalsapati, a great devotee of Sainath. I have narrated it from the beginning to the end as I heard it from him. Let us end the narration now. The next one is more profound. It will be narrated in a proper sequence. Please listen to it with attention. What was the earlier condition of the masjid? With what difficulty it was paved, and whether Sai was a Hindu or a Muslim? No one knows this for certainty. In the next chapter will come a detailed narration in its proper order of Baba's yogic practices and such as the Dhoti Pothi and Khanda Yoga and his taking upon himself the karmic suffering of devotees. Hemant surrenders to Sai. This narration of his life is due to his grace only, and listening to these meritorious and holy tale will remove ignorance. May there be well being. This is the end of the fifth chapter, the reappearance of Shri Sai, of Shri Sai Samartha Satcharithra, written by the devotee Hemat Pant, impelled by the saints and virtuous people. This is offered to Shri Satguru Sainath. May there be auspiciousness. Om Sai Ram. Now let us do the Aarti. श्री सच्चिदानंद सद्गुरु साईनाथ महाराज की जय. शिर्डी माझे पंढरपूर साई बाबा रमावर. बाबा रमावर साई बाबा रमावर. शुद्ध भक्ती चंद्रभागा भाव पुंडलिक जागा. पुंडलिक जागा भाव पुंडलिक जागा. याहू याहू अवकेचन करो बाबा श्री वंदन. साई श्री वंदन करा बाबा श्री वंदन. तनो बने बाबा साई भाव भाव माझे आई. भाव माझे आई भाव भाव माझे आई. अनेलो तांगण मने कचरण तयाचे पाय न रूप तुझे. प्रेमीन रंगीन अनंत पूजिम भवे इन बने नमा. भवे त्वमेव माता पिता त्वमेव त्वमेव बन्धु सदा त्वमेव त्वमेव विद्या दैर्यं त्वमेव सर्वं मम देवदेव मयेनुमाचा प्रसन्नियर्म उद्याकनावापतन स्वभाव करोमि यद्यत् सकलन्तरस्मै नारायण इति समर्पयामि अच्युतं केशवं राम नाम्नारिणं कृष्णदामोदरं वासुदेवं ईदवं माधवं गोपिकाविल्लवं कनकेनायकं रामचन्द्रं हरे राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे श्री गुरुदेव दत्त सच्चिदानंद सद्गुरु साईनाथ महाराज की जय। Om Sai Ram. I urge all the listeners to read one chapter of the Sai Satcharithra every day and so in Baba bliss. Baba bless you. Om Sai Ram.